What's up, guys? So today we're going to take a little look at what I feel like is a pretty fair comparison between the Skar SDR12 and Hyanka. Hang on a second. The Hyanka BSF12. Um, they're both priced very similarly. Right now, the Skar is on sale, so it's a little bit cheaper. But normally it's the difference of 123 bucks for the Hyanka and 110 for the Skar. The Skar's on sale for 100 bucks right now, though. So based on what I've found, it's a pretty good deal. Um, so we're going to look at them. We're going to talk about them and compare these two products and figure out which one's the best for what application and which one I would pick. Let's have a look. We'll start out over here at the Hyanka page. Um, Looking at that guy. So let's blow it up a little bit. Hyanka kind of hides their information around in different places, so we have to kind of jump around to find it. And the way I do this is when I find two products that are similar and have a similar class and a similar price point, I dig through them and try to find out as much as I can about them before we start. And then I tend to discover things as I go along because I don't always catch everything. But this Hyanka sub is 800 watts RMS, 12-inch sub. Uh, some of the points that we'll point out right away. It's got a lot of buzzwords, um, like advanced airflow cooling, all that dynamic audio range. I don't like that kind of stuff, but it is a nice little sub. So it shows an RMS of 800 watts, a 2.5-inch voice coil, ferrite magnet. It's got double slugs. I think the Skar also has double slugs. The X Max is 0.59 inches, which is going to be, I'm thinking that's going to be one way. It doesn't say. You guys will have to do a conversion for that. I haven't done it. So an impedance of, see, I'm slacking. Impedance of 4 ohms, 87 dB sensitivity. That's an important one. And it says 45 to 1,000 hertz. That's complete ridiculousness. But that 45, I think, is relative based on what I found. So it's got a really sick aluminum basket, pure copper voice coil. Voice coil former is black aluminum. And the cone material is high strength pressed paper. So also it's got a 5.5-inch mounting depth and 22 pounds. That's not terribly heavy. Uh, let's take a look at the Skar and see what we can find on it. We'll go back and forth here just a little bit. The Skar is a little more conventional of a design with their sub. They don't have that fancy aluminum basket. They've got a stamped steel basket, but it doesn't mean anything negative. It's just not as pretty. Of course, most of the time that basket's going in the box anyway, so you're never going to see it. There's always that. So it's a 12-inch sub. It's 600 watts, a little bit less RMS power handling. Same size voice coil, 2.5 inches. It's also got a pure copper voice coil. Like I said, they're very similar in a lot of ways. I do know that the BL on the Hyanka is 18.8, I believe, and the BL on the Skar is 16.67, and the BL is how much power, how much force your motor has. And that comes into play in high energy situations. The more motor force you have, the better. The FS is listed over here on the Skar, and it's 32 hertz. So this little 12, it's really unusual to see a 12 with a 32 hertz FS. That's low. And one of the reasons I think that's so low is because of the QTS. The QTS is 0.53. So I'm thinking if you give this guy 500, 600, 4 to 600 watts and put it in a fairly large enclosure, it's going to dig low and deep and nasty. Um, it does have 13.5 millimeters of travel one way. That'd be 27 millimeters of two-way travel. And when we look at different subs, a lot of times they'll list the peak to peak, which is both ways. And then a lot of times they'll list one way travel. So you got to figure out which one they're listing. Usually, if it's one way, if it's a one way travel, they almost always tell you it's one way. If it's peak to peak, then they won't say anything. So that's one of those. A lot of these things are really hard to compare. The sensitivity is a tiny bit lower on these at 84.7 dB. So with 1 watt at 1 meter, you get 84.7 dB. That's the standard 1 watt per meter. And of course, there's a lot of 5-star ratings down here. But listing for the box info, it actually lists pretty small enclosures. So one, it recommends 34 to 36 hertz porch tuning. And I can see why with a low FS like that, you'd probably want to tune a little higher on your port so that you would have a nice wide bandwidth. Because if you tuned at 32 with that 32 FS, you're gonna really get busy at 32 hertz, but it's gonna start to die off up in the higher range. So yeah, I would say that's probably a good recommendation for musical tune. And I am no box building expert, nor am I a subwoofer expert. I'm just learning, just like you guys. I may be a little further along than some of you, or not as far along as others, but it is what it is. So the seal recommended volume is 1 to 1.25 cubic feet, which is small. And I'm guessing they're doing that for control, and that power rating. But the reported volume recommended is 1.5 to 2 cubic feet. So yeah, a 25-inch port area, be like a 5x5. That's a pretty good sized port. And then the specs, we get in here. We did that already. We looked at those. So let's jump back over here to this Hyanka sub again. Now, it doesn't give a lot of the information it doesn't give there. You have to go into the pictures and go through them. I'm not sure about this right here. It's obviously a double stack magnet, but I think that's 100. I don't know. I don't know for sure what this means. If it's 170 ounces or what, I do not know. But they list the sensitivity at 87, which is a bit higher. Here's the thing that bugs me though. This 45 to 1000 again, right? So if we go up here, it is a good looking sub though. It really is. It's very clean. Let me go down. It's down here. There's this thing. Well, we just lost it. So let's try that again. We lost it. Lost it. And see, it just keeps wanting to do that. So I'm going to have to do it this way. So annoying. I really don't like the way their stuff's laid out. But here, it's showing the peak at 45 hertz. So that's the number we got again. And down here, we do get the motor force. The motor force is 18.809. And the QTS is 0.66. a little bit tighter, a little bit more ring to that. That's probably why they recommend the smaller enclosure. For the other one is to tighten up that QTS, to bring that QTS up, give it a little bit more support. Um, I was looking for any other bits and pieces that I could find in here. There's so It's so difficult to get information from these guys. It's like so much of this crap, powerful bass you crave. And I hate that stuff. Give me actual usable, workable information. Uh, but yeah, it's a good looking driver. Now, full disclosure, I am running a Hyanka sub over here in the corner. Um, it's a step up from this guy in the 15-inch version, and it sounds amazing. Of course, I'm not doing anything to it to make it really have to work. I've also got behind me back here, I've got the Hyanka 1500. What's that? Yeah, CDP 1500 watt monoblock that I'm powering it with. And I don't ask much of it because this is in my studio. Every once in a while, I'll crank it up a little bit, but it gets down and it plays clean and it sounds great, so I can't complain about it. But we're not here to talk about that guy. We're talking about a different product. So, one of the things the points I give to the Hyanka sub, obviously, this basket. I know that's going to be nice and rigid and stiff, and it looks great. Um, it has more motor force. It has the cooling. It has is all right here around the coil. That can be good. Whereas the Skar has a pole vent, a bump pole vent cooling, and also some cooling around the coil. So the Skar is going to probably cool a little bit better, I would think. It does have less motor force than the Hyanka, but so I'm going to keep it real with you guys. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is a single layer spider. I can't tell on the Hyanka because there's nearly no images at all, but it looks like a single layer to me based on how there's not much down here below where another spider could really be. So it's probably a single layer spider. This little driver reminds me of a one of the JLW3, little small JLW3s from back in the day. It looks a lot like that. Um, what I like about this driver is the fact that it's got a very low resonant frequency, very low FS at 32 hertz. And that slightly lower 58 or whatever it was, QTS with that low frequency tells me that this is a fairly loose driver and it's going to play lows like no tomorrow. And I'm a big fan of something playing the lows, digging deep. That's what I enjoy. Um, on the other hand, the Hyanka, the only information I could find about its FS is 45 hertz. You know, I don't know what the hell's up with that. Um, I don't like that. You know, is it going to crap out down in the 30s? I don't know. Now, I'm not dumping on Hyanka as a brand. I'm just saying I don't find the information here with this particular subwoofer and this size doesn't excite me. If you were going to be doing SPL, that's a different story. If you're wanting to play a one note wonder, you know, especially if you've got like a Tahoe or a Suburban or a big, you know, a big SUV, having a 40 hertz peak, 45 hertz peak would be devastating. This thing with the right port tuned at the right spot, and that body style that likes to play in the 40s anyway, you know, you're going to get some high SPL numbers out of it. Really good SPL numbers. If that's what you're looking for, then this will be a better driver. But if you're wanting to play music and you're wanting a nice wide band and something that digs down and gets low, I think the little Skar is going to be the best choice. In fact, I think this little Skar SDR12 is one hell of a deal, especially considering its summer sale event at $93.49 right now. But even at its normal price of $109, and don't even have that, it won't even let me copy that. Isn't that crazy? It's like an image. It's not even real information. That's how it works. If it's normally $110, even a little more, even at 120, I think this would be a really good deal. Like I said, it reminds me of a little JL, and that low FS is nasty. This would probably be a great sounding little sub for about any application, as long as you're not expecting it to bust windows. It's not going to do that, but it will probably real quickly piss off your neighbor. So, of these two drivers, and the 12 market of these two drivers, I would quickly pick the Skar SDR as far as the specs go, what I think it's going to do, and what I would want it for myself, which would be kind of SQ-ish music. And I know picking a Skar sub for an SQ system, what the hell is wrong with the world? But trust me, brand name does not dictate great for SQ. What dictates good for SQ is specs, how well it does its job. The brand that's on it is irrelevant, you know. I mean, if we're honest, these guys are both getting this stuff made probably in the same factory, if not a factory next door. But that's not what we're here to talk about, and that's not even important. What's important is which driver does the best job for what purpose. And that's my take on it. If you guys found this helpful, be sure and slam that subscribe button. Now, I very much like comments. Okay, comments is how I drive my channel. So if you disagree with something I've said, drop it down in the comments. I am no subwoofer expert. I am no box expert. I'm just another car audio enthusiast out there, just like yourself. It's always willing to learn, take criticism, constructive criticism, and gather information and give it back to the community so we can all get more knowledgeable in this area, this field, this hobby. I think that knowledge replaces money. Okay. If you've got tons of money, you don't have to know anything. You just throw money at people that know stuff and then they can do it for you. But if you learn things and you gain knowledge, you can spend money more productively, and you can get a whole lot more for your dollar because you know how to do a lot of that legwork yourself. That's what this channel is all about, guys. That's what I'm all about.